Hello and welcome to episode 279 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan. We are not here to look back. We are not here to rehash our mistakes. We are not here to lament injuries. We are here to look forward and discuss our rest of season top 150. Joining me for these pods each week are two young men you know and love. It is Mike Leone of the Establish the Edge pod, analytics directing fame, other Virgin spreadsheet activities, and it is our projections lead in the midst of crushing overlap season of NBA and NFL. It is Mark Dankenbring. Leone, good morning.
Good morning. Look forward to another episode of this.
Mark, back from California. Shout out to you. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. Fun weekend, but missed out on absolute heater of NBA props. I mean, just absolutely crushing over there. So if you haven't gotten on with us, now's the time.
Yeah. You can't leave in the middle of prop season.
No, anyways. I learned my lesson. That's for sure.
On today's show, we're going to talk about player outlooks for the rest of the season. In other words, if you were drafting today, what would our rankings look like? If you are an in-season NFL subscriber, you have access to our weekly rest of season top 150, which comes out each Wednesday. I think it's good for best ball, for season-long trades, et cetera, et cetera. Before we get into it today, I wanted to remind everyone we are running a mid-season / Halloween sale. Get access to everything we do, Discord, NFL props, all our NFL content for just $149.99 through the rest of the season. I said that is egregiously too cheap. Corporate told me that we have to give some kind of mid-season sale, so it's ridiculous. Anyways, rest of the season top 150. So we're 8 weeks in now. There have been some major kind of seismic shifts from injuries, I think. And obviously the first one that we talk about is Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was our number one player in the rest of the season top 150 last week. Obviously done for the season now, no longer there. I'm curious, Leone, do you think that this is another feather in the cap of Team Zero RB, injury rates, etc.? But I don't really think it's fair to say that personally, because we've seen a lot of wide receiver injuries as well. But yeah, I'm curious what you think about this from a more macro perspective of zero RB, and then also from a more micro perspective of how we've adjusted Titans stuff going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the zero RB ideology is that these injuries are just going to happen and we don't know who they're going to happen to. I know people might be saying, oh, Derrick Henry had such a huge workload, it was going to happen to him. But like, I don't think that's fair. He's had a huge workload in the past. This year got a little bit extreme, but we didn't know that before the year that it would get even more extreme. And that was really good for your team. Your team, if you had Derrick Henry, is probably in a good spot. And like, hopefully you can attack some of these running back options. So even though I'm very pro zero RB, I don't want to like overstate the impact of this one injury. It's kind of overall, the landscape of the running back position and what can happen. One thing I've noticed, I don't know if you guys have felt similarly. Levitan probably hasn't. I don't know if he's out there grinding the waivers like me and Mark, but I feel like the field's getting sharper, just even in casual leagues, at making some of these running back pickups and like just understanding who to stash. And I found it hard on my zero RB teams to find guys. I felt like it's been easier in the past to find startable guys, to find upside. And the one good thing about zero RB is we have been able to find like JD McKissic's been super startable. And like now we can pick up Jeremy McNichols. But there's been some guys that have gone really bad. Like Elijah Mitchell was the huge win, right? But, Tyson Williams turned out to be nothing. And a lot of people spent fab. So it's been a little bit of a mixed bag, I think. And as you mentioned, Adam, the round two of wide receivers hasn't exactly been great. DeAndre Hopkins has been running hot on efficiency, but not great. Calvin Ridley's, taking some time off and wasn't performing well. Justin Jefferson, who we still have really high, like hasn't done that well. Like Diggs, who we're confident in, hasn't done insane. Some of the wide receiver winners, again, like I think the biggest thing that we harped on is whether you're doing zero RB or not, rounds 3 through 6, right? Like that's where you get running back failures in like not a ton of upside with some exceptions like Swift. And you get wide receivers that do have the upside. That's where Cooper Kupp came from. That's where Jamar Chase came from. That's where, Deebo Samuel, around 7. Like, so really pounding wide receivers rounds 3 through 7, I think is solidified as a strategy. And then I'm actually still kind of into like the take one running back early, like maybe even more so than I was heading into the year.
Yep, totally agree with that. From a more micro perspective, Mark, let's talk about the Titans going forward. And Evan and I talked about it on the pods yesterday a little bit. Obviously, we think that Adrian Peterson and Jerry McNichols are going to share work going forward. They also have Devontae Foreman in the mix. But yeah, I mean, I'm skeptical that Adrian Peterson at his advanced age is going to come in and you're going to try to build an offense around him. Jerry McNichols, though, I mean, he was already been on the team for the whole year. We already know he can play in the pass game. So we have him 109th overall. People are going to say, why don't you have Adrian Peterson in there? And also, I think this is certainly a boost for AJ Brown and Julio Jones if they can get healthy as well, and Tannehill as well, who's moved into the top 150 now. Mark, how did we think about the Titans stuff in the rest of the season?
But yeah, I actually think we do have Adrian Peterson in there. He's just not populating for Tennessee's team at this point. But just on the Titans, I'm a little worried about systemic risk moving forward just with this offense. I think the talent is certainly a little bit lacking now. You know, we talked about them having just such rare top end talent with Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones. Obviously, Julio has been in and out, so that hasn't been super reliable. So now it's basically just AJ Brown and whatever you can get out of Julio. You know, the other receivers, Westbrook-Ikhine and Chester Rogers and Josh Reynolds, and those guys don't really offer a whole lot necessarily to buoy that offense moving forward. So I'm a little worried just about Tennessee's, you know, offensive environment. We love them because of their play action, and you know, it's fair to question how defenses are going to handle that without Derrick Henry, you know, getting the fake. So the upcoming few weeks aren't that good either, with the Rams and Saints on deck. So I'm not, you know, super excited to pick up Adrian Peterson. I think he would probably be my target in half PPR or standard leagues, and then McNichols and PPR I think is the way to go. But I do think we could see this be, you know, a 3 to 4 running back committee, and it's tough for me to get too excited about any of them at this point.
It's going to be an interesting case study what happens with this Tennessee offense without Derrick Henry, because, you know, a lot of Derrick Henry's work was pretty low value outside of the big runs, you know, from a pure like EPA standpoint. But it does feel like he's had a much bigger impact than is reflected in those numbers. So I'm curious to see how things play out here for Tennessee, who will undoubtedly, you know, have to throw a little bit more.
Yeah, we indeed have Adrian Peterson in there at 123rd overall. Jerry McNichols in, I believe, at 109th overall. You see here on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, we have AJ Brown, the wide receiver 6. The only wide receivers we have ahead of AJ Brown going forward are Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Devonta Adams, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I mean, ever since this Chipotle flu thing, like everybody was worried about it. I mean, he's been balling ever since he had this like massive diarrhea from the Chipotle flu, and dude's been balling, man. I mean, he's played really well the last few weeks.
Yeah.
And obviously, they're gonna have to rely on him a ton.
One thing I've noticed too is they've been putting him in the slot more this season, which I think is interesting. He's lined up in the slot 39% of the time after only 16% and 12% in his first 2 seasons. So they're at least moving him around the field, trying to scheme him more touches and just get him in open space, which I like to see for sure.
Okay, we have a new king, Leone, with Derrick Henry done. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's so obvious. But I mean, if you were drafting today, I would take Cooper Kupp first overall. You would take Cooper Kupp first overall. I mean, it's getting completely out of control. So yes, we have a new king. Cooper Kupp is our number 1 overall player going forward. I don't know if there's much to say there. I just wanted to give the guy a crown. Yeah,
it's just insane. He had kind of a bad run out last week and went for 27 DraftKings points. You know, it's week after week, he's giving us no reason to doubt it. The top, you know, talking to Mark, you know, was tough to rank, but I do think some of these running backs start to gain a little bit of value. Just if you think about like who's going to be the league winner, like over the course of the playoffs and whatnot, you know, you're losing some guys here. So I think there's some, you know, positional value gain for Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, some of these guys up top, where if you have a team like with CMC that's going to make the playoffs and he's able to come back, like that could just totally run through the playoffs. But Travis Kelce, someone asked about Kelce, you know, time to drop him lower than 6 overall. This is a really tough one up top, and it's more interesting, I think, than the Cup discussion. Adam, has the age model come for Kelce or what? I underreact to this rather than overreact, but the performance against the Giants had me questioning.
It's not just the Giants. I mean, he's had a string of bad performances in a row, and I mean, the age model is undefeated. I mean, it's literally the only model that like I'm only all the other models I'm like really joking about. The age model I'm really not joking about because it literally comes for everyone. And I've said going, like last year, I mean, he's 31, 32 years old. It's just really hard to sustain. I don't know. I think there's some systemic problems with the Chiefs right now that they can get squared away, and that will help Kelsey some. But yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it would be tough for me to stomach Kelsey over some of these running backs. I think if I was drafting today, particularly CMC, Najee, maybe JT.
Yeah, the draw with Kelsey is still like that positional edge if it comes back, and but maybe we're waiting too much the hope, like, oh, if he's great, the edge is huge versus, what is he actually right now? And that's the tough part of the conversation.
Sure. I mean, TJ Hawkinson is going to catch, 6, 7, 8 balls a game the rest of the way, and that's a huge edge. Also, we think Darren Waller's going to be healthy. And also, God, I mean, tweeted about this last night. I saw on the pass rate over expectation, the Baltimore stuff. Jesus, man, like, if they actually decide that their running backs are total dust and they have Lamar throwing the ball really well and they have Bateman, Watkins, Andrews, fake Hollywood, I mean, what if they just like let Lamar throw a ton? I mean, my God, all these guys could go off and Lamar just go absolutely nuclear. So yeah, I'm excited for some of these other tight ends, frankly, also. And I think the Falcons will figure it out without Ridley too, to get Pitts more involved on a weekly basis when Ridley doesn't play. But yeah, I think the tight end position is maybe stronger than at the top than you're giving it credit for with Kelsey there. Okay, let's move to Michael Carter, because this is a tough one, man. Like, Mike White's target rate at running back is completely absurd and unsustainable. Of course, Zach Wilson is going to come back and get the starting job back once he's healthy. I don't know when that will be exactly. So how do we think about ranking Michael Carter here, Mark? It's a tough decision because, man, I mean, Kevin's been out. Mike White has been checking down a ton. I'm just not sure exactly how to think about it.
It's a little tricky for sure. And, with these rankings, we're constantly waiting. Okay, how does the outlook look this week and the next week and then the rest of the season? So obviously we're leaning more towards rest of the season rather than just like their week 9 outlook. So we have Michael Carter just outside of, the RB2 range. I think he's at RB 26. So we like him moving forward. Definitely a flex play. And I think this week you can, feel confident starting him as an RB2 at minimum. I mean, you mentioned just the checkdowns. It's been unbelievable for Mike White. He has, the one of the lowest ADOTs in the league over the last 2 weeks. And if we extrapolated that number over the whole season, it would be the lowest among all QBs. So he's really checking it down. I would expect defenses to start crowding the line of scrimmage and forcing the Jets to go deep. In terms of just Michael Carter in general, this was a 0 RB target that we were excited about potentially breaking out in an ambiguous backfield. And we've kind of seen that play out. And he got the post-bye bump that we were looking for, has taken over most of the rushing carries there in New York. And Tevin Coleman has kind of been kicked to the curb. I'm not sure if he'll come back and play a factor. I think he's been inactive for injury, but he could potentially come in and steal a few carries, I guess. But in terms of just the Jets and player development and what they should be stressing this year as a team and an organization, I think they're going to continue to lean into Michael Carter and see what he can do and just, fill his plate up and see what happens.
Yeah. I would say you mentioned 0 RB again there, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but to me, a better 0 RB than relying on waivers is targeting guys in rounds 9, 10, 11, 12, who we think can end up winning. AJ Dillon, Michael Carter. I mean, there's a lot of guys like that could end up hitting, maybe Ramondre Stevenson ends up hitting somehow down the line and stuff like that. So yeah, to me, like, there's guys in here that have that range, and Michael Carter is one of them.
Yeah, especially in best ball, hitting, I mean, obviously this is for redraft because it's in season, but Melvin Gordon, James Conner, you're getting really usable weeks if you were willing to take running backs there rather than waiting until the very end.
Yeah.
So again, wide receivers 3 through 7, then hit your running backs 8 through, and Mostert would have absolutely smashed if he didn't get hurt. Running backs 8 through 12 or whatever. And yep. Fournette in there too. We were down on Fournette. That was kind of whiffed by me, but he's another guy in that range.
For sure. Okay. The other big injury of the week was Jameis Winston blowing out his knee and being done for the season. And also we learned today that Michael Thomas will not be back this season. So we get into this spot with the Saints where we think Taysom Hill is going to be the starter going forward. Maybe they mix in Trevor Siemian a little bit, but I kind of doubt it. They liked using Taysom Hill last year. They won games, well, with Taysom Hill playing his style last year. And his style, of course, is very, 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 very fantasy friendly. Like I can't, it's tough for me to overstate like how fantasy friendly Taysom Hill's game is. He's going to run a ton. He has this red zone rushing role. So it's tough going forward to like, if you have quarterback problems, man, like I'd be trying to spend a bunch on Taysom Hill. We only have him QB 15 here. I would, in the right spots, I would be willing to play him above some of these other guys. But yeah, I mean, he's right there with Tannehill and Carr. And I'd probably rather have Burrow, obviously. And I think Russ Wilson will be back. So yeah, I think the range here is about right. But yeah, definitely Taysom over Justin Fields for me going forward. Leone, how would you think about Taysom rest of way?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. The reason why we're a little bit conservative is, he's been dealing with this concussion. That's been an issue. It sounds like he's going to be back and start this week, which is great news. So want to see that. And then he had this stretch last year where he scored, it was like 24, 19, 24, 20 DraftKings points, which is phenomenal at quarterback. And as you noted, his rushing ability and the way they use him by the goal line specifically really gives him a high ceiling. I am a little worried in the sense that Michael Thomas was playing well during those Taysom games. And just systemically, this offense is a little bit more boring this year. And even though Taysom's value is primarily coming from the ground, the offense as a whole might not be providing as many high value opportunities for him as it did last year. So that's my only slight concern, but I'm with you. If you're struggling at quarterback, or like Levitan, we've got an FFPC main event team that's going to have Jalen Hurts on bye during the playoffs. It makes sense for us to try and stash a guy like Taysom Hill to get that upside during the playoff run.
Wanted to bring up Michael Pittman because shout out to me, identified the Bible narrative in August, and it is not due to Michael Pittman's athletic ability. It is not due to Carson Wentz playing well, offensive line playing really well again. It is solely due to the Bible study that Michael Pittman and Carson Wentz have been attending together. Michael Pittman obviously was the stone cold chalk on DraftKings this past week in an amazing spot against the Titans. Obviously, he won't have that spot every week, but man, like without T.Y. Hilton, they have so many talent problems all over their team, do the Colts, and Michael Pittman just sticks out so much. So Mark, I don't know what you think about Michael Pittman going forward exactly, but to me, like he has a really good floor ceiling combo going forward. How do we think about ranking him?
Yeah, I think you put it pretty well in the floor to ceiling, range there. And I was expecting his target share to be a little better. He's still under 24% of the team's targets on the season, which, is good, but not an elite number for a wide receiver. So, but just when you're looking at the Colts and talent wise, as you mentioned, there's just nothing else there to, cut into Michael Pittman very much. They're going to continue to scheme looks for him. Obviously, he had a season high 15 targets this past week. He's been getting more looks in the red zone. He's top 20 in the NFL and in terms of red zone targets on the season. So I think, when they get down in the red zone, it's obviously going to be Jonathan Taylor, maybe a little Mo Alley Cox, and obviously Michael Pittman. So I think he's kind of become the downfield threat and the intermediate threat for the Colts. And so you can feel comfortable starting him every week. I'm not sure if he can kind of get up into that wide receiver 1 range just because of volume concerns, but he's clearly the number 1 guy in Indianapolis and someone, you can feel confident about starting every week.
Yeah, we have him 56th overall right now, just behind Chase Claypool, T. Higgins, Bobby Trees, Adam Thielen. I think that's about right, but on a week-to-week basis, I mean, as you can see, he can have huge, huge games in the right spot as long as he keeps attending Bible study. Okay, a couple more guys I want to hit on quickly here. Leone, the Brandon Aiyuk stuff, man. I mean, God, he has so many zeros in his range. Like, it's like really uncomfortable for me to ever start Aiyuk in season long or play him in DFS. But his usage is back to where it's like, I don't want to say elite, but it's really, really strong. Like, he's running a ton of routes now. He's in the mix. I think his target share was actually really good last week too. It's hard with these guys though who have stone zeros in their range. Like, I still think Kyle Shanahan doesn't really like Brandon Aiyuk, right? So like you could get rug pulled at any time on this. So I don't know, man. Ranking Brandon Aiyuk is really hard. What do you think about the San Francisco stuff? Obviously, Debo is just an absolute monster.
Yeah, I mean, you do want to be careful. I mean, we saw week 3, he played 86% of snaps, and we're like, it's happening. He's back. Like, whatever was going on is done, and now we're going to get the Aiyuk breakout. And then he went right back, to a little roll. But then to see him coming out of the bye week with a stronger role is a pretty positive sign. Season high in snaps, season high in targets last week. And this is a case of really understanding where your team is at. I'm with you. Like, I'm still not throwing Brandon Aiyuk into lineups. I'm not trusting him. But if I've got teams that are a little weak at the back end of, wide receiver 3 for my team or my flex play, I want Brandon Aiyuk stash because of the ceiling down the stretch. I think that's what's really driving our ranking, is that ceiling down the stretch, that if it does break right, things could go really, really well for a player that a lot of people had as a breakout candidate. A lot of sharp people had him as that coming into the year. If you need someone to start every week, there's probably going to be better options right now, around the same ranking that we have Aiyuk.
Mark, I guess I was guilty in the season-long process of passing on the strict pocket passers such as Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford, where they were going in, round 7, 8 or so. I was just like, screw it. I'll wait for Jalen Hurts. I'll wait for Justin Fields. I'll wait for Trey Lance and capture some of that better upside in rounds 11 and 12. I mean, I got Jalen Hurts in like round 12 a ton. And so to me, I'm not sure it was wrong, because I think Hurts in round 12 is better than Brady or Stafford in round 8. But I mean, these guys were such a lock to throw so many touchdowns. Maybe it was a mistake. And so I'm playing them so much in DFS tournaments now. Like, I got a bunch of questions in the solo pod about, like, are we overrating rushing quarterbacks now in DFS? And I was like, yeah, I mean, because the way you're stacking in DFS, like when these guys throw touchdowns, they're throwing them to people. And if you want to run doubles like you can with Brady and Stafford, well, it works really well. I think in season long, obviously you're not stacking unless you're really fortunate to have like Brady, Godwin, Evans or something like that. But you're probably not stacking as much, but you're still getting so many touchdowns from these guys. It's not as good, I don't think, in season long. You want more of the rushing upside, I think. But yeah, I mean, these guys are like breaking everything by how many touchdowns they're throwing. So I don't know, man. How do you think about ranking Brady and Stafford?
Yeah, we were a little hesitant to move them up in previous weeks. I think just because of our priors. If you were using our rankings, and this happened to me a lot, we were kind of skipping over Stafford and Brady in the 7 to 9 round range, and scooping up guys like Joe Burrow and Trey Lance and Justin Fields, in the double digit rounds. And that was great coming into the season. And we've seen the Bengals open it up as we were expecting, but I think we should have just been, I don't know, Leone did more with the season long stuff in terms of pass rates and stuff like that. But the
sure.
Bucks
Throw me under
and
the
Rams,
bus, Mark.
No, yeah. The Brady stuff is unbelievable. I mean, 44 years old and just still tearing up the league. I think that, it's hard to get too optimistic on him going into age 44 season, but the Bucks are just throwing at an outrageous clip, and they're keeping Brady clean as well. Brady and Stafford, they're kind of hand in hand in a lot of these just passing statistics. They're second and third in percentage of dropbacks without pressure, which we obviously love. Obviously, quarterbacks perform so much better in a clean pocket than under pressure. They've each got great weapons at their disposal. We've seen Antonio Brown go down, and Tom Brady just continues to shred with Godwin and Evans. Brady leads the league in just overall pass attempts. He's second in pass attempts, 20 plus yards down the field. So I think, it is hard to discount the rushing upside that some of these quarterbacks give. But, when we look at pass rate over expectation, I love Leone's red zone pass rate over expectation. I think that is a really interesting point just alongside normal pass rates. And the Bucks and the Rams are both, at the top there. They're third and fourth, respectively. So
yeah, and
it's just the offensive environments are just so good. They're great quarterbacks moving forward in fantasy.
Yeah, I think the key is if you're going to get a pure pocket passer, the pass rate over expectation has to be there, in and out of the red zone. And I do think we actually had a pretty optimistic lookout on Brady. He just went really early. Stafford was the guy I was worried about because the Rams last year didn't, and you didn't know how much that would change with Stafford. Like we assumed it would be more aggressive, but it's been even more aggressive than we expected. And looks good to stay.
Yep. Okay. That's going to do it for this episode because I have to get my first career cavity filled in about 30 minutes here. If I don't make it back alive from this, I love you all. I appreciate you all being subscribers, and you can give all of my ETR equity to Two Hats Mike and Mark Dank for
let's go. Gotta get this dentist on the phone right now.
Yeah. Oh God, I can't believe I'm getting a cavity filled for the first time at age 39. This is ridiculous. Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being subscribers. If you haven't checked out the rest of season top 150, it is up on the site right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're watching or listening to this on any podcast, please hit subscribe as well. It is indeed free. For Leone, for Mark, for Jerry, for my dentist who may or may not be a criminal, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.